So, the Nord CE, which launched recently, might not have impressed critics, myself included, and of course tech enthusiasts, but it is truly flying off the shelves as per my industry sources. In fact, the Nord lineup is the real money spinner for OnePlus, which is why there is some anticipation and hype for the OnePlus Nord 2 5G, which is the real successor to the OG Nord. Now, it is important to understand a couple of things that happened in the interim between the Nord CE's launch and the Nord 2's announcement. Firstly, OnePlus announced a deeper integration with its parent company, Oppo, which is not really a surprise there. And secondly, OnePlus also announced that it is going to integrate the code base of ColorOS with OxygenOS. Now, with that out of the way, let's try to evaluate this whole new strategy that OnePlus has and how that affects the Nord 2, and of course compare it against its immediate competitor as well. My name is Arshad, you're watching MySmartPrice. Let's get down to this really deep dive review of the OnePlus Nord 2. But before we move on, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it to get notified whenever MySmartPrice puts out an awesome new tech video. I have never done this before, but let's talk about the software on the OnePlus Nord 2 first, because I feel that it is bound to piss off some long-time OnePlus fans. Essentially, the Nord 2 now runs on OxygenOS 11.3 based on Android 11, but it also shares ColorOS 11.3's codebase. So what does this mean? Let me break down what I noticed in my testing process. Most of the design, which includes the fonts, the icons, and the animations, are the same as the previous OxygenOS versions. Thankfully, there are no bloatware apps that you find on Oppo phones such as Soloop. OnePlus continues to keep it clean, which is great. Now, the first similarity that I noticed is very clearly the camera app. OnePlus has completely ported Oppo's camera app with some features too, which is why the brand is so bullish on the AI angle. You see AI beautification, AI photo enhancement, AI color portrait, dual view video, and more similar Oppo features. Now, it is not offensive or anything, but I really feel that OnePlus should have made the design more cohesive instead of just slapping the app without any customizations to match OnePlus's OxygenOS design language. It feels like a shoddy patch job instead of a clean execution. In any case, what matters to me is how the camera performs without all of these embellishments. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Now here's another example of inconsistent design. OxygenOS has borrowed the floating messages windows from ColorOS now. So if you get a WhatsApp text while using the camera app or watching a video, you can reply to the text in a floating bubble, but say you want to enable or disable the feature and you search for floating anything inside the settings app, nothing pops up because it is called picture-in-picture and the feature is inside app info for WhatsApp. Apart from this, OnePlus has overhauled the settings app to look a lot like ColorOS. The individual settings are now laid out like it is on Oppo's interpretation of Android, with the explanation line wiped out. So it does look clean, but a little too threadbare. Anyway, customizations have changed to personalizations, for example, and the layout is similar to what we have on ColorOS. Notifications, network settings, and more are now very similar to ColorOS's layout. Most importantly, OnePlus now uses Oppo's battery optimization, which includes a manual toggle for always-on high-performance mode. There's just a whole lot more with the settings that has changed. I'm just scratching the surface here. Again, are you okay with this? Let me know in the comment section below and qualify if you are a OnePlus fan or not with that comment. You know what? If OnePlus was integrating the code base, I would want the engineers to let me bulk remove apps from the home screen at least, like you can on ColorOS. Also, if we are sharing requests, I'd love it if we could search widgets too. Now, as for the rest of the software, it continues to be extremely well optimized, and I didn't notice any bugs either. That WhatsApp bug of delayed notification doesn't exist anymore, so which is a good thing. Now, if integrating ColorOS means that all of OxygenOS's bugs and issues get wiped out and that we get software updates on time, I'm not really complaining. And after having used this new software approach, I'm fairly certain that we should brace ourselves for future OnePlus phones to come with ColorOS. And most importantly though, I feel that OnePlus should just rip off the band-aid instead of giving us hope and offering this neither here nor there approach with its new OxygenOS software. You know what, that mistake is fine. Now coming to design, it's nothing fancy. From the rear, it looks very similar to the OnePlus 9 series, thanks mainly to the design of the camera module. This platform type design has a base rectangular plate with camera rings on top of it. This entire module is slightly raised from the rear, causing it to wobble on a table. What's interesting is OnePlus's approach of using different textures for different colors. For example, my Blue Haze unit uses a glossy glass texture with a coating that keeps fingerprint smudges at bay. You really don't see it. But the camera module has a matte finish texture. In comparison, the green wood has a fall leather finish. Anyway, the blue color is similar to OnePlus 8T's aquamarine green and not the OnePlus Nord's blue marble. The Nord 2 has a glass sandwich design with Gorilla Glass 5 on the front and the back. The frame's outer layer is made of plastic with a fake metal finish, which I'm not a fan of, but the actual frame on the internal portion of the device is actually made of metal, which OnePlus has clarified. After missing out on the alert slider on the OnePlus Nord CE, it is refreshing to see that it exists here, albeit in a tinier footprint. I'm not complaining about that though, because the convenience is unparalleled. On the flip side, I did also miss the headphone jack that made a comeback on the OnePlus Nord CE. You do get a set of stereo speakers and it sounds clean and crisp. And for the in-hand feel, the Nord 2 feels good and has a nice heft owing to its 8.25mm thickness and 185 gram weight. But I did feel it was slightly top heavy, which affects the ergonomics. The one area where the Nord 2 takes a hit is in its display quality. I was genuinely taken aback by the quality of the panel. OnePlus has definitely made some cutbacks here to save costs. So much so that it is objectively worse than the panel used on the OnePlus Nord CE. You get a similarly sized 6.43-inch Fluid AMOLED panel with a 90Hz refresh rate. It does support up to Display P3 as well. So what went wrong? Well, two things to be precise. OnePlus's new screen color mode, borrowed from Oppo, offers only a couple of settings, both of which don't offer a natural tuning. The white point is completely off and it looks really cool, and you can't really rely on this display to show you true to source natural colors. Secondly, I measured a peak brightness of lower than 800 nits in HDR mode in my standard test video. This is lower than that of the OnePlus Nord CE and of course the other competition products in this price range. Now, while this won't matter for most normal folks and only enthusiasts will sweat over the small stuff, the difference is undeniable, especially when you are evaluating a tech product, so we have to highlight it. And most importantly, when there are better displays in the same price range, for example, the iQOO 7. By the way, while there is support for wideband L1, OnePlus doesn't offer HDR playback in Netflix on the Nord 2 before launch as per Netflix policy according to OnePlus. I will leave a comment below if that changes anytime soon, but for context, the OnePlus Nord CE does offer HDR playback on Netflix. Anyway, OnePlus does add a couple of AI-related enhancements that boosts resolution and colors, and it truly feels like a pointless gimmick instead of a genuinely useful feature. Please refrain, OnePlus, please. But there are a couple of redeeming points about the display. The in-display fingerprint scanner is insanely fast as usual, and there's the new haptic 2.0 tuning done by OnePlus on the vibration motor. It offers a genuinely tight response and a sublime feedback as well. I quite enjoyed using the upgraded haptics. In fact, it is as good as the one used by the OnePlus 9 Pro, if not better. So if you like what you see till now, don't forget to hit that like button and maybe even comment below, because YouTube's algorithm favors, engagement, and it pushes this video to more people who are engaging on this video. And of course, it'll also help somebody looking for a OnePlus Nord 2 review. And of course, it doesn't cost any money either. So please go ahead and do that. By adding the Sony IMX766 sensor to the Nord 2, OnePlus has definitely piqued a lot of interest in terms of camera performance. This IMX766 sensor is paired to a lens with an aperture of f/1.88. This is a very powerful sensor and was used by the Find X3 Pro's main camera and the OnePlus 9 Pro's ultra wide angle sensor. It has a sensor size of 1/1.56 inches and a pixel size of 1 micron. There is OIS 2. The rest of the setup includes an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, 2 megapixel mono lens, and an upgraded 32 megapixel selfie shooter. To test the performance, I compared the camera performance to the iQOO 7 and the Mi 11X to find out how it fares. The first thing I noticed while fiddling with the cameras is the Nord 2 actually takes great close-up shots using the primary camera. There's none of that shallow depth of field issue that has been plaguing big sensors with a wide lens. I believe that is also because it has a slightly narrower aperture compared to the competition. In fact, the iQOO 7 switches to the 13 megapixel ultra wide angle camera when it goes close to a subject, which is why you see a lot of objects in the background in tack sharp focus. The Mi 11X also takes a picture directly using the main camera. So yeah, for close-up shots with a good depth of field, I think OnePlus does a good job. Now, I don't know if it is the Hasselblad hangover, but the color science on the OnePlus Nord 2 is on point. Only OnePlus has managed to faithfully replace the reds, blues and greens in this image, especially when you look at the red gradient in the book Emma. The iQOO 7 completely botches the reds. The Mi 11X has my second favorite tuning here. In situations with ample light on offer, there's nothing to tell the three apart when it comes to details. Until you pixel peep and you notice that the Nord 2 and the Mi 11X are a tad bit more detailed because their individual algorithms tend to slightly sharpen the picture to make it look more attractive. Anyway, I cannot emphatically say that one sensor is better than the other when it comes to detail retention, even with the full res detail samples which you can see right now. In my ultra-wide angle test, the iQOO 7 with its 13 megapixel camera easily trumps the other two 8 megapixel sensors. You just get much sharper images with great dynamic range. Although, when it comes to HDR performance of the main cameras, the Nord 2 does something weird. It does look better in terms of the overall image now that it is not crushing shadows compared to OnePlus's earlier algorithm, which, by the way, the Mi 11X does willfully. But there is a distinctive tone-mapped artificial look on the OnePlus Nord 2 that you cannot escape. The stacking algorithm goes overboard on the sharpening, making the image look like absolute garbage at 100% crop. Take a closer look at the bark of the tree or the new evergreen store sign. As a matter of fact, the Mi 11X also over-sharpens the store-bought side. The iQOO 7 clearly has the most balanced HDR performance with no added drama. The sky wasn't as ominous as it looks in the Nord 2 shot. But the tables turn when you look at the human subject shots. The Nord 2 sample image is definitely the best looking of the three, provided you don't, trigger HDR. The Mi 11X not only has an overtly contrasty look, it also over-sharpens unnecessarily. The iQOO 7 continues to struggle in controlling the warmth. The Nord 2 offers extremely sharp details, a clean bokeh, and close to natural color reproduction, including facial tones. So, that would be my pick. But OnePlus's algorithm woes are back to haunt the Nord 2 again soon enough. In portrait shots, I had a tough time focusing and taking a portrait shot firstly. Secondly, every single portrait shot that I took had a weird artificial look, almost as if the software was manipulating the image. Oh wait, okay. Anyway, as you can tell here, the algorithm does a weird job with the deliberately underexposed look. Plus you can see the over-sharpening raise its ugly head again. In fact, all the portrait shots here look bad. If you can live with the contrast heavy look, the Mi 11X might be a passable option. Now, when it comes to selfies, the iQOO 7 and the OnePlus Nord 2 are clearly better than the Mi 11X, but the sharpness is better on the iQOO 7 for what it is worth. But the iQOO 7 struggles with selfies against the light because for some odd reason the HDR does nothing and blows out the background. So overall, objectively, the OnePlus Nord 2 is better for selfies. In selfie portraits again, the Mi 11X loses out since the facial tone is too contrasty. The iQOO 7 and the OnePlus Nord 2 are almost equally good, very little telling the two apart here. Now the IMX766 on the OnePlus Nord 2 is actually a low light champ. Even without night mode, the Nord 2's image is the most detailed one with the least amount of noise. With night mode on, if you ignore the bad color rendition, the Nord 2 just gets in a lot of light and makes details pop out in certain areas that the other phones find difficult to achieve. Plus it wipes out the noise. The same is true for the next set of images. Even without night mode on, the Nord 2 shines, especially with the sheer amount of details it retrieves without any manipulation. Although with night mode on, you will see a sharpened look. Again, whenever a behind the scenes algorithm work is to be done, the Nord 2 does tend to overdo things. What I like about the Mi 11X is that it keeps the whole scene very natural looking. The iQOO 7's night mode does a very good job of cleaning up the details too. But yes, the Nord 2 would be my pick for the best low light shooter. There is no doubt in my mind that the Nord 2's low light selfies are the best here. It doesn't even botch up the night mode here, unlike the iQOO 7 and the Mi 11X. Fantastic job, OnePlus. The OnePlus Nord 2 can only do up to 4K 30fps video recording with OIS. OnePlus claims it could come in a future update. But let's talk about what we get now. The Nord 2 has the best sound recording, followed by the Mi 11X and then the iQOO 7. The footage otherwise is crisp on all the three phones. The Nord 2 looks more attractive with great dynamic range too. So now we are shooting a 4K 30fps video using the OnePlus Nord and the iQOO 7. The iQOO 7 can also shoot 4K 60fps, but the OnePlus Nord cannot. And do let me know in the comment section below what is thought about the image quality, the image stabilization and the sound recording. Now I'm shooting a 4K 30fps video using the Mi 11X. Unfortunately, this one cannot do 4K 60fps either. Stabilization wise, Nord 2 and the iQOO 7 do it better, but yes, the iQOO 7 can also do 4K 60fps video, albeit without any stabilization applied. Although, the Nord 2 does have an edge with its dual view video recording option. Plus Nord 2, which is very similar to what Oppo phones can do. So yeah, so nothing new over here. and you can change the way it looks. When it comes to recording with the front camera, the Mi 11X has an edge not only with the 1080p 60 fps option, but also with the fact that it can do EIS at 1080p 30 fps, which the other two cannot. Even the sound recording is great, but the Nord 2 does a good job too. If you are okay with the kind of facial tones that the Mi 11X recreates, it might be the better option for vlog style selfie videos. So now I'm shooting using the front camera on the OnePlus Nord 2 and of course the iQOO 7 as well. Evidently the iQOO 7 is looking better, and the OnePlus OnePlus Nord could do 4K 60 FPS before using the front camera, but this one tops out at 1080p 30 FPS, which is what we're shooting at even on the iQOO 7. The Mi 11X can actually do better frame rates than the other two phones. Basically this can do 1080p 60 FPS as well. I'm right now shooting at 1080p 30, but 1080p 60 without electronic image stabilization is what the Mi 11X can do. Now, after testing these cameras, the OnePlus Nord 2's primary camera hardware is actually very powerful, one that can take detailed pictures without noise, and of course offer great color science and supremely good low light performance as well. But the problem crops up when camera algorithm comes into place, and when it has to depend on the MediaTek's ISP and OnePlus's algorithm, especially when it has to do some processing in the background, like stacking pictures in HDR or portrait mode or night mode. There are clearly some over sharpening issues and color science inconsistencies as well. Having said that, I am actually impressed with the camera performance on the OnePlus Nord 2 when you're using the primary camera like I mentioned, and you get some great close-up shots or human subject shots, and of course the features on offer are pretty attractive too, and most people using the Nord 2's camera will be impressed with the kind of pictures that you get with it. But is it the best camera phone in this price category? I would say not, because the processing definitely has to improve. I'm just glad that OnePlus made a good camera phone. This is the first time OnePlus has used a MediaTek processor on one of its phones. Evidently, it is the most powerful one, the Dimensity 1200. I've already tested the Dimensity 1200 extensively, first on the Redmi K40 Gaming Edition, which is expected to be the Poco F3 GT in India, and second on the Realme X7 Max. And the common thread is that it is a powerful SoC, no doubt, but it throttles the GPU performance, as is evident from the chart comparing the Dimensity 1200 phones to the ones with Snapdragon 870. In most benchmark scores, the iQOO 7 definitely leads the race, and the OnePlus Nord 2 does get slightly warmer to the touch compared to Snapdragon 870 phones. Anyway, the Nord 2 can play Call of Duty at very high graphics and max frame rates, or high graphics and max FPS. The game has still not been optimized for Dimensity 1200. It can actually hit very high graphics and max FPS on the Snapdragon 870 toting phones such as iQOO 7. As for BGMI, you can go up to HDR graphics and Ultra FPS. If you want extreme or 60 frames per second gameplay, you will have to drop the graphics to smooth. The iQOO 7 can do HDR graphics and extreme frame rates. In fact, it even offers you UHD graphics, for which you have to download the pack separately. Fun fact, I actually use the iQOO 7 as the gaming phone of my choice for its excellent touch response rate, as it helps me with Twitch responses in Call of Duty Mobile. So if you are a gamer and if you're looking at a gaming specific phone, then I would suggest picking up one of the Snapdragon 870 options like the iQOO 7 or the Mi 11X. In fact, you can actually wait for the Poco F3 GT, which is launching tomorrow, because it adds like gaming triggers, which of course elevates the gaming experience to a different level. Now, the OnePlus Nord 2 is not a bad gaming phone, but it's just that the competition is far too intense now, and OnePlus is not doing much to stay ahead of the curve. And when it comes to daily performance, there is really nothing separating these phones that are on offer in this price range. All of them are plenty fast and plenty responsive, no problems there. As for the network performance, the Nord 2 does support 4G carrier aggregation and sounds great in calls too, no complaints whatsoever. As for the 5G band support, the Nord 2 offers 4 NSA bands and 7 SA bands, which is a huge upgrade from the OnePlus 9 series for what it is worth. But no point now, considering we have no way to even test it. One good thing about going with the top-end MediaTek flagship SoC is that you get Wi-Fi 6 support as well. For the first time, OnePlus has also introduced its Warp Charge 65 solution to the Nord series. It goes without saying that this is a beastly charging solution that can top up your phone's battery from 0 to 100 in under 35 minutes. But the iQOO 7 can charge equally fast, so there's no real advantage there. As for the 4500 mAh battery, it can last you a day's worth of usage, and it can give you a screen on time of a little under 6 hours, which is par for the course in this price range. Now, evaluating a phone in the 25,000 to 40,000 price category is getting confusing by the day, considering all the variables that are on offer, which is why you have to figure out your use case before you actually make a purchase decision. As for the OnePlus Nord 2, it is a perfectly good phone for most folks and it will appeal to a wider audience base as well. Evidently, with the Nord 2, OnePlus is going for a more premium experience with a great haptic feedback, stereo speakers, all of those things, right? And this actually is trying to match the experience that you get with a number series like the OnePlus 9 series. Compared to the original OnePlus Nord, this is definitely a huge upgrade in terms of specs, experience, and of course, price as well. But, and there is a but, the OnePlus Nord, when it launched, was launched in a price category that was completely dry, like super dry. There was nothing that stood out, which is why it had a landslide victory and held on to that victory for a long time as well. But times changed really fast in the tech space, and now you have very many phones out there that can actually match the performance of the OnePlus Nord 2 and sometimes even beat it. Let's take a look at some of these phones. Well, firstly, I am firmly in the iQOO 7 camp despite the use of FunTouch OS. I seriously feel that the hardware on offer is unparalleled in this price range. And secondly, you have something like the Poco F3 GT, which is launching very soon, and it is looking really potent as well. Then you have Snapdragon 870 toting phone, the Mi 11X, which also offers a great display as well. And if you want a cheaper Dimensity 1200 phone, then you have something like the Realme X7 Max, which definitely has pricing in its favor. So where does that slot the OnePlus Nord 2? Where does that leave the OnePlus Nord 2? Well, frankly, in an intense skirmish for the upper mid-range supremacy with no clear winner in sight. Which is why I reiterate, and it is very important to mention that as well, is that you have to figure out your use case as to what kind of phone do you want, and also figure out if you have some sort of brand preference. So what do you guys think of the Nord 2? Did you guys like the phone? Didn't like the phone? What do you think of the whole ColorOS integration? All those things, and if you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, this is Aishar from MySmartPrice signing off. Goodbye and Godspeed, my friends.